everyone, and welcome to the studios of Grafton Community Television. I have a guest in studio, and she is running to be the town's next town moderator. Her name is Dawn Anderson. Welcome.
Hey, thank you.
How are you?
Good, I'm well.
We should thank Ray Mead for telling me you exist.
That's great. Well, you aren't the only person of Grafton Media who had the same response, because when Jen called me after I pulled my papers, the first thing she said to me was, "I'm sorry, but I don't know who you are. I've never heard of you before."
Okay. That's a lot kinder than, "Who are you?" Well, I have a bunch of different questions related to the role of town moderator, but why don't we start with the really simple stuff?
Okay.
Because if Jen doesn't know who you are, I'm sure there's one or two other people who don't know who you are. So
Probably.
why don't you tell us about your background? Where are you from? Are you from Grafton? Or?
Not from Grafton.
Okay.
My husband and I moved to Grafton in 2007, so just over 13 years ago.
Okay.
We live on Brigham Hill. Love it. It's beautiful. And I went to my first town meeting when I was pregnant with my second son, when they were discussing building the new high school.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because we had been in town for a few years and we realized this is where we really wanted to stay.
Sure.
And I wanted to find out like what the school system would be like. My oldest was almost 2 and I was going to have another, and I wanted to find out what was going on. And so I attended my first town meeting back when the middle school was a high school, the old auditorium, and I just was really impressed with the way the meeting was run and the presentations and the discussion, and just, it was really interesting to me. So I've been going to town meetings ever since.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I have to go. I'm required to go. And oftentimes, I learn a lot, but sometimes I'm stunned by the stuff that goes on that I wonder, man, how do people know this stuff? Because there's a lot to know.
There is a lot to know.
So then the next question would be, when you're not running for town moderator, what do you do? What do you do in your professional life? Or
I started out as a paralegal at a law firm doing evictions.
You weren't kicking the doors in, I don't.
No, I was in charge of, processing the eviction paperwork, organizing the files, and then once we got the writ of execution going and setting up the sheriff's department and the locksmith and the movers, and so I did that for a few years. That's actually how I met my husband. He worked for the bank agency that bid on the banks at foreclosure.
Okay.
After the foreclosure was complete, and then I would evict them.
I see.
Not the funnest job in the world.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so I left there and took a job on the editorial staff at a trade book publishing company, doing nonfiction and fiction titles for a small company down on the South Shore. And did that for a few years, but it turned out that to be an acquisitions editor, which is the track I was on, you had to be very aggressive in calling agents and send me what you got and get it. What do you got? What do you got? It was like
You mean in search of new books?
New books,
okay,
yes.
all right.
So to acquire new books, you can't just spend your days going through the piles of random submissions that come in from the general public. You need to cultivate relationships with agents and do a lot of that. And it was just, I wasn't very comfortable doing that salesy kind of role, so I took my skills at that point as a copywriter and went and worked for a retail company doing copywriting for direct mail and catalogs. Did that for a few years and then took a position at an educational publishing company that makes level books for elementary students to teach them how to read. So I've started working there in 2004 and stayed there for quite a few years and worked my way up to the project manager overseeing their trade shows and their 300 plus page catalogs and direct mail campaigns and overseeing local teacher councils to get input on new books and products, and then took a position at a direct mail company as the marketing communications manager. And I was there for a year and had my son. And when he was born, I kind of was in that position of how do I juggle full-time work and being a full-time parent and I was fortunate enough to still have a good relationship with the publishing company I'd worked with, and they had a position open for someone who would be part-time. So I stepped back from working full-time in the world and took back my role as copywriter, and I've been working part-time for them ever since so that I could be there with the kids. And had Remy and then had Finn. Remy's 7th grade now over at the middle school, and Finley's in 4th grade at the North Street Elementary.
Right.
So since they were little, I've just been working part-time, mothering full-time, volunteering at the schools and the classrooms and different activities. And
So it sounds like you were working from home pre-COVID.
yes, I was. I'm one of the few people who learned in like 2008, you have to have a routine, you have to have a schedule, and it's really good to just get dressed every day. Like one of my friends was like, I haven't worn pants in a really long time, and I was like,
Too much information.
you have to just get dressed. You can't just spend all your time, so. Yeah, I was pre-working from home, but it got a lot more crowded after COVID.
Yeah.
Then my husband was working from home. Both of our kids were at home. But, we made it through it. And 2020 gave us the chance to kind of see. I actually, prior to COVID, had been thinking about going back to work full time. And then COVID happened, and I was like, all right, that's going to be really hard to find a full-time job when everyone in the world is, on unemployment or furloughed or part-time or whatever. So I stepped up my involvement with the Grafton Public Library Capital Campaign Committee. Back in 2019, I went to the groundbreaking of the new library and bumped into Dana Wilson, who's the president of the Capital Campaign, and she asked me if I wanted to join the committee. And I said, what does that entail? She's like, we really need a clerk. We need someone who can keep the minutes and write the notes and the thank you letters. And I was like, that is so in my wheelhouse. That would be great. So I've been working with her and Doug Bowman, going on calls and sending out thank yous and keeping the minutes of the meetings and, just kind of working with them to make sure that the library has the funding it needs once it's reopened to really continue to support the town. So then school got out, and I was like, now what am I going to do? So I took a online digital course in social media marketing and got Google Digital Garage
Doesn't
certified.
that sound funny? I took an online digital course and so.
Yeah, and I was like, so I'm certified as a Google Digital Garage for, it's an online university that they have.
Wow.
And then, school started back up again and things were moving along. And in February, it came to my attention, as we discussed, that Ray Mead's running for select board. And the person who won the town moderator role last year stepped down before the first meeting even happened, and Ray filled in over the summer and in the fall, but now there would be no one to take that position. So I talked it over with my husband, and I said, I think if not now, when would I ever do this? And I would regret it if I didn't try. So
you took the wind out of my sails, because that's exactly where I was going to go next. So you wake up and you decide, I'm going to run for town moderator. And I'm not aware that is there a job description that goes with town moderator? And then how do you pursue it? Because let's face it, you don't really go to school to be town moderator, right?
No, but interestingly enough, I was the parliamentarian in my sorority in college.
Okay.
So I had a loose memory of Robert's Rules of Order and parliamentary procedures. So I was like, well, it's not a complete unknown for me. So
Is it just that simple, just being really good at Robert's Rules of Orders?
No. I have been spending the last few months reading Town Meeting Time, a handbook of parliamentary law.
Okay.
That really gives you the history of town meetings in the United States. Each page has like 1/3 is text and 2/3 are footnotes. of like all the legal annotations of the cases that kind of drove where the text was going in that,
Sure.
which I was thankful for. I have a associate's degree from a small, now defunct private school in paralegal studies and office management. So I was like, all right, this isn't completely foreign to me. I do understand the wherewithal and heretofores and such. Although I will say the text itself, originally written, the book, was originally written in the 1800s.
Get out.
And was updated last in the 1980s.
Wow.
So it's not it's like a time capsule.
Sure.
It is very much written for the men being the town moderator. So one of the funniest things that I've read in it so far, most of it is pretty dry, is that most towns elect a man to moderate the meetings. However, on occasion, a town may elect a lady to the position. In that event, her title shall be Moderatrix. Although during the course of town meeting, Madam Moderator would roll off the tongue more easily. And I was so floored. I texted my husband, I texted my friends. I was like, I don't understand. This is crazy. This is the funniest thing I've ever read in my life. So I am Moderatrix.
That
Yes.
is weird.
Yeah, it's very dated. So
I guess it just proves what people believe, that the wheels of local government move very
slowly. It's a slow train.
Because the book wasn't updated.
The book hasn't been updated since before I graduated from high school, so it's got some older things in there. But I've been studying that. I've been studying the town bylaws, which actually references the town meeting times as how to run the meeting. And I also have reviewed. The Secretary of State's office has issued a guideline for citizens on attending town meetings, so I felt that was something important to kind of have a fuller picture of what attendees are allowed to do or expected of. You know, between my studying for school and the work that I've been doing as a copywriter, in addition to my educational publishing company, I also have done like one-off projects for local businesses in and around Boston that are in a variety of vertical markets. So you have to kind of become a little expert in their subject matter. So I'll read everything there is to know about like point of sale integration for iPads so that I can write the HR handbook for the people who work at Coach, who know everything about you the second you walk in the store because they were able to link to your account on your iPhone. So I've been just trying to like absorb as much as possible and learn as much as possible about the nitty gritty. It's like that Dan Brown quote from Life's Little Instructions book. It says, don't learn the tricks of the trade, learn the trade. So I'm trying to learn as much about it as possible. And to do that, I've also had one-on-one meeting with Ray to kind of go through how a town meeting is run. I have another meeting scheduled with him this evening. And I've been in touch with the town administrator's office, and I'll be attending the logistics meeting before the town meeting. Unless there's a huge write-in campaign and I don't win the election. But I wanted to make sure that I'm, trying to touch base with as many people as possible to learn about the position.
This is really a fascinating story, because if there wasn't an opening for the town moderator, would you have thought to seek that position?
Actually, I was at a birthday party a few years ago and asked someone there a question and about how town business was being run. And they said, that's interesting. Have you ever thought about running for office?
Your question prompted that response?
Yes. And I was like...
Must have been a hell of a question.
Yeah. And they were like, you should think about that. And I'm like, oh no, with the kids and my work, and my husband travels for his work. So when there's not a global pandemic, I spend a lot of time being both parents and running the sports schedules and the after school activities and everything for both.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's too busy, it's too busy. And now I'm like, okay, now's the time. The seat is open. I've had the downtime to process the information and learn as much as I can. And I feel like when the world does start to open up again, I will expand into that to fill that space. Whereas I feel like you can, my husband and I have joked about this during the pandemic. He's like, I think a lot of people are going to be like, I don't need to be out there as much as I used to be because you get more comfortable in a smaller space. But I think the opposite of that is true as well. Like if you already are juggling, you have this on your plate, then it's easier to fit something new in. And that's kind of, I really feel like it couldn't have happened at a better time. I have the time to learn about it. We have the time to, it's not a full term because I'm filling the seat.
Correct.
So it's only for 2 years.
Yep.
And that will give me the time to kind of get up on my feet and learn the job, and also be able to have, you know, other pockets of my life. My kids are getting older. That's why I was looking for another job a year ago.
Sure.
And they're both really excited.
I was going to ask you what the kids thought,
They were
because
really
it's one or the other. It's either whatever or.
No, there's,
that's great.
I have so many friends who have said when your kids get to middle school, that's like, they don't want to see you anymore. They don't want to have anything to do with you. But my boys are my biggest fans. And
Good for them.
so they're really excited. They're a little confused about the difference between being a moderator and being the mayor. And I was
Okay.
like, that's not the same thing. We
Sure.
don't have a mayor. We have a select board, we have a town administrator, and the moderator just runs the meeting. I don't,
Right.
you know, I don't run the town.
Right.
And they're like, but you could run the town. And I was like, but I don't want to run the town. I'm good with just the meeting. It'll be fine.
They'd be happy with the image of mom just snapping her fingers and making stuff happen.
Yeah, so
That's
they're
interesting.
really excited. Like, I had lawn signs delivered over the weekend,
Sure.
and my oldest was like, get the knife, we can open the box, we can open the box, we're gonna put it on the lawn. He's like, can I put it in, can I put it in? It was they're really excited.
Good for them. So, other than the library, what other issues in town interest you that you might possibly be involved with as town moderator?
Well, one of the things that I have learned about being town moderator is that I have to be like Alan Greenspan when he was Fed Reserve Chair.
Interesting.
Is that as moderator, you have to be neutral. You can't take sides on issues.
Right.
You have to, and it's something that's repeated in the town meeting time. So like, you should not get involved. There's like a whole section on if there's something, you know, something so specific that would affect the decision, that's the only time that you can speak on it. That being said, I think that Grafton is so beautiful, and I love what we've done to, you know, keep the parks and bring those up to compliance so that they're more accessible to all people throughout the town. I like what they've done with the Common and building up the businesses on the Common. We have a lot of great, we still have a lot of great open land, and I want to make sure that that's still there.
Right.
Going forward, but to build up strategically businesses and communities that can support the town without needing as much from the town, which is probably very selfish because I moved here because it was a great town to raise your kids, and now I'm like, yeah, but there's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that the town continues to keep a steady progression and thoughtful decisions in how our growth and development happens. So I'm excited to see what happens next. I grew up in a small town that had like one intersection light, and it grew really fast. And you may know the Xfinity Center is in Mansfield, but it's on the line of Norton,
Right.
and I grew up in Norton, and I know what it's like to have something really big pop up right over the line that affects everything in your town.
Sure.
So I just want to kind of see where we go next and how we can make sure that we retain that small town community and allow for development and growth.
Wow. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to look at the camera right over there and address the people at home and tell them whatever personal message you want them to hear.
Okay. Hi, my name is Dawn Anderson. I'm running for town moderator. I am new to Grafton politics, and I feel that it is the time to get involved in stewarding our town. I encourage everyone to vote May 2nd and especially encourage people to attend the town meeting on June 5th. Thank you so much for your time.
My guest in studio has been Dawn Anderson. She's running for the open seat of town moderator, as I was told today, with a temporary position. Thank you for coming in. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot.
Oh, good.
I really did. I learned a lot when I talked to Ray Mead, but I learned a lot talking to you too.
I learned a lot watching your video of you talking to Ray Mead.
Which was a hoot. So, well, thank you so much. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you for watching. My name is Bob Totoma. On behalf of everyone here at Grafton Community Television, thanks for watching.